in the old days, this is a picture from New York from the 30s. The public space was the place where you met with your local peers. Not just to get the latest information, but also to get a kind of a sense of belonging. So what we experience today is that that has changed. So now this is the case. We are super connected. We can connect with anybody, anytime, real time, around the globe. And I don't know if any of you can have experienced this kind of situation where you're together, like being on Facebook and Twitter and updating and stuff like that. And actually, one of the things research show is that it has a kind of a backside because we kind of move from this physical space using the public space as a connecting point to a virtual space. So what research show is that it's actually creating a sense of unconnectedness, or you could call it loneliness. Actually, there's a psychologist in New York that calls it connected loneliness, meaning that you're together without being together. So actually, that was a thing that we started out with. We thought it was, I mean, that's pretty strange that you can be super connected. We've never been as connected before, and at the same time experiencing that people feel unconnected. So we started looking into that and see, could we kind of solve that? And one of the things we stumbled upon, and we found the answer actually, was actually a research study from the US in the 60s. We kind of forgotten about it, but it had a really good point, and the point was 7%. Yeah, that was the point. So that's actually the reason, 7%. And this study was made by this guy. It's Albert Mehrabian. He made this study about what constitutes social connectedness. And he broke it down in these 3 key numbers that are, I mean, extremely important today to try to reflect on. What they mean is that 7%, when we're talking about human connectedness, only 7% comes from the written word. So when you're texting or you're Facebook updating and stuff like that, 93% is missing. So the 55% is body language, mainly facial expressions, and the 38% is tone of voice. So we started to discuss this. Okay, how could we use technology to try to compensate? And actually, one of the funny things we stumbled upon after that was emojis, because emojis is kind of like a compensation of the 93% missing. Actually, mainly the 55%, because the 55% were facial expressions. So this is a text. It's in Danish, obviously. I'm from Copenhagen, and it's from my daughter saying, "Hey, you'll be cool that tomorrow." She's 10 years old. She uses a lot of emojis all the time, as you can see. And I don't know if she's trying to elude the audience. So maybe that's the audience she's trying to symbolize. But she said, "Hey, calm down. You'll be fine. You can make it." So hopefully I can. So emojis is a compensation, but is that good enough? And or are we actually being caught in technology? Do we have to stop and reflect and try to reshuffle? And we believe that it's time for reshuffling. The thing is, when we look at urban spaces today, it's becoming more and more congested, and it's pretty obvious that we need new models for living next to each other, because there's limited space. Now, this is Times Square. That's pretty extreme place to be. And it's definitely not a place where you will meet your local peers. So the thing is, a thing we experience around the world, especially in Asia, actually, is that it's becoming more and more congested. So we need some new models of living to get back to that value of sense of belonging. So it's a kind of like a hyper-urbanization model we have to think of. So at the same time, we have to think about, okay, we have to put in a lot of people in the same space in 2050. The prediction is that 70% of the world population will live in cities. So I mean, it's a huge challenge. So hyper-urbanization is actually about like figuring out how can we get most out of the space and add technologies to see if that can help us. So when it comes to public space, one of the interesting things we have been looking at also is normally we talk about three spaces. We have our home, that's our first space, and our work, that's second space. And the third space was this space where you could meet with your local peers. But actually, more and more are using public space as an extension of their private space. So it's not actually, we're not actually connecting in the public space, and that we find that's pretty interesting, because public space is actually it's a kind of a soccer field. So it's a frame of opportunity. But in contrast to soccer fields, not specifically this soccer field, I guess it needs a special gameplay and maybe another object than a ball that's round. Maybe it has to be square or something like that. But the public space is a frame of opportunity. But we need some objects. And we need a gameplay. It doesn't have to be a fixed gameplay, but it's like a catalog of opportunities. And then we need people. We need people to, see that opportunity. So what it comes down to, and what we've been working at, is actually to look at stuff as conversation starters. So how can we, instead of just consuming stuff, we've spent 20th century in convincing ourselves that we're just consumers, and the only thing life is about is consuming more. But actually, we have reached a point where, for many reasons, that we have to, rethink, and actually, stuff represents a bigger potential. This is my favorite picture of a conversation starter, or as we call it, a social object, and that means like an object that brings people together. And I just love this picture because, this little girl sharing her ice cream, it's a pretty long time since I was her age, but I can imagine what she's thinking. When will she ever stop eating my ice cream? Or is she giving some of her ice cream next time? Or what's the trade-off? So one of the funny things I came across actually 2 days ago was that today is actually Black Friday. So Black Friday is this crazy thing from the US where you hyperspend. You just buy a lot of stuff. You actually don't need. For most people, they just buy it because it's cheap. What's cheap is good. So let's just get it, and let's get like 3 microwave ovens because they're super cheap. And this could be like a scene from Walking Dead. It looks like zombies. They're like walking like this with all their stuff. And what happens is that you get a new industry, super for business. So the remote storage industry. And this is just US, is $22 billion a year for remote storage. It's in your basement and maybe next Friday I'll use it. No, you drive like 10 miles and then you store it and then you forget about it. And then you pay for storing it. So it's super stupid. So what we believe in is actually that we can use stuff in a different way. Our background is we've been working with sharing economy models, and instead of looking at what you would call like customer-centric sharing, where it's about consuming more for less, we're looking at what we call citizen-centric sharing. So it's kind of like taking back the public space, like reshuffle, rethink it, and there is a lot of good, fantastic initiatives around the world. We've stumbled upon many examples. This is one example from the UK, where you put out grass, and then in a weekend you have like this barbecue with your local peers, and you get this opportunity to actually to meet. You have a reason to talk with each other, and we think that's super cool. But our background is technology, and we are like, okay, it's super cool, the initiative, but it's so cool that I wish that it would be there every day. So how can we look at solutions that are not like temporary, because most interventions are temporary. So we developed what we call OURHUB. And OURHUB is an urban infrastructure. What it consists of is we use our smartphone. We have containers or hubs, as we call them, that are custom made for specific objects. Then we have what we call social objects. So it's not actually a rental platform for ping pong bats or ping pong paddles. It's actually objects as social enablers. So it's a reason to interact with whoever is around you. Because what we believe in is that we're surrounded by friends we haven't met yet. That's basically what it is. So you just need some kind of idea of, okay, who's into Prince, or who's into soccer or specific soccer club. So we can use technology for that. We can like map it out. We can use big data in figuring out, okay, who's around me that loves stamps from pre-war period in Germany or whatever crazy thing you're interested in. And then we can bring people together, and so it's almost like a dating service, but it's more like a social dating service. So you don't have to, be together forever. That's not the purpose. But you can have like great social experiences, and in many senses that's the same with dating. That you actually would like to be brought together with a person you can share thoughts with, and yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And the last thing is local communities. And when we say local communities, we think like hyper-local. So it's super, super local. And we've developed an app. This is an example of the matchmaking part. So when you have the app, then we know who's nearby you. And you can use this interface to actually to connect. And one of the things we think is interesting for social interaction is that the thing about that you have more in common than you think about the people you see around you is actually a thing about how we select who would we like to play a game of petang or croquet in a park or ping pong or whatever game it is. The thing is that we have a lot more in common. So it could be a guy from India that's like 20 years older than you, that has a turban on, but he's also into whatever it is. So actually the lower part of the app is actually conversation starter words. So we are trying to build algorithms where we use conversation starters to match people, and the more crazy it is, the more fun it is, the better social interactions you're actually getting. And we just got started, and we need a lot of data before, we really know how to do it, but it's kind of an experiment right now. So actually what it comes down to is actually to find the right object as a conversation starter object for the right place, for the right people. So that means it could be a park where you have like a petang field, okay, petang balls, because people love to play petang, that's in the park, so that's a perfect object. And then we use the platform to make these social events. So this is a parking facility, a new building built in Copenhagen, and it's actually an exercise roof. If you ever come to Copenhagen, you got to see that place because it's totally awesome. It has this fantastic view of the harbor of Copenhagen. So what we're doing at that roof, the whole idea of that roof, we were not in that project from the start. We came on board half a year ago after it was built. But the idea was that it should be like a place where the locals could do exercise together. But the thing is that the whole roof is designed for CrossFit, so you need a lot of objects. So you have the objects in boxes, but the thing is you need a key, and it's only like the trainer that has the key. So it's only Saturdays from 9 to 11 you can use the objects, which is pretty stupid. I mean, you spend a huge amount of money building this roof, and you can only use it Saturdays from 9 to 11. So what we're doing is actually integrating our technology with smart locks and sensor technologies and tracking technologies, so we know, I mean, if you borrowed a thing, did you deliver it back and stuff like that. And then we have the social platform, because that is the main point. But then you can use it 24/7. You can use it alone. You can use it with your friend. You can get access to all the objects. There's a lot of super cool objects. Or you can invite some of the local peers around. So you have this opportunity to connect. So actually, what it comes down to, what we believe in, is actually we have to play more. Now we have developed a platform. We're only in Copenhagen, but actually if you have some kind of game, reach out to your local peers and invite for a game. Thank you.